Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. So in this video I want to talk to you about 5 things I wish I had known when I was just first starting out on the violin. Before I do get into the video, I know a lot of you are new to my channel. I get a lot of new subscribers every month coming into my channel, and although you guys are watching my videos that I'm releasing, you have absolutely no idea that I have this absolutely fabulous 1 to 30 violin course sitting right next to me that literally hundreds of you have already bought and had a go at. So I just want to quickly tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the rest of the video. So my 1 to 30 violin course guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to a very accomplished intermediate player. Basically, it's going to take you from playing like this to playing like this. This is the only interactive and all-encompassing course available online, and the closest you'll ever get to having a real teacher sitting there in the room with you. This course has been developed using my many years of experience as a violin teacher, performer, and actually a London College of Music examiner for one of the top exam boards in the UK. And this has given me a very unique and particular insight into teaching and how it should be taught. So this course takes you from a complete beginner, so you don't know anything about music. It will teach you how to hold the violin, how to hold the bow, where to place the violin, where to actually bow on the strings. So you don't even need to be a musician to learn to play via this course. You don't need to know anything about anything. Of course, if you do know something about music and you've played an instrument in the past, then that's obviously going to help you. But you don't need to know anything about music. And this course will take you through everything you need to know. So once you've learnt to hold the violin, it will start to teach you some open strings and then gradually adding in a few of the finger notes. After each set of 10 lessons, you will then move on to a songbook. Each songbook contains 10 well-known classical pieces that have been arranged for the exact level of the previous 10 lessons. So lessons 1 to 10. Then you would go on to this songbook 1, and everything in this songbook 1, it will encompass everything that you've learned in lessons 1 to 10. There'll be nothing more, nothing less in there. Then you will move on to lessons 11 to 20. Once you've completed those, you will move on to songbook 2. Songbook 2 will be at the exact level that you will be at after you've got to lesson 20. After that, you'll move on to the next set of 10 lessons and then finish off with songbook 3. And the piece that I played at the beginning of this was from the songbook 3. The beauty of this whole course is that it's priced very, very fairly, and you don't have to commit to any weekly lessons. You can do them exactly when you want to. It's fully interactive, as I say, with the videos online and everything that you need in the books. You don't need any other materials if you don't want to, no other sheet music. And the best part about it is that the first 10 lessons are 100% absolutely free. I want you to try the first 10 lessons. I want you to see how I teach, see how you get on with it, see if you're actually playing, see if you actually learn. And if you do like the first 10 lessons, then you can go ahead and purchase the rest of the books that we've got here. So I stand by my statement that my 1 to 30 violin course guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to a very accomplished intermediate player. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about the things that I wish I had known before I started playing the violin, and things that I wish are going to be really helpful for you guys. The first one is that the violin is really hard. It is just, I'm going to put it out there. The violin is one of the hardest instruments to play. I would argue that it is the hardest instrument, but all the pianists out there are just going to go absolutely nutty at that statement. So each instrument is hard, it's hard and it's difficult in its own right, but I'm a pianist as well. I'm a violinist. I play both to pretty much exactly the same level, I would say. And in my opinion, the violin is definitely a lot harder. The piano, you have the keys set out right in front of you. So if you want to play an A, you put your finger on an A and it plays an A. The difficulty comes with the piano is because you've got 10 fingers, so you can play a possible 10 notes at any one time. There is a lot for the eyeball to be looking at when it's looking over the music. So the piano is difficult in that respect, but there are no, dare I say it again, there are no real techniques involved in the piano. And what I mean by that is that with the violin, you've got a violin, that's great, but you've also got the bow to be figuring out as well. And the left hand fingers on the violin are doing one thing, the bow arm is doing something completely different. So yes, there are techniques on the piano, and I'm not making any derogatory statements towards the piano and any pianists out there. Absolutely not. I am on myself. But with the piano, you only have your own 10 fingers to contend with, and you've just got to figure out in your head where those 10 fingers are going and what order, what rhythm, and all that kind of thing. With the violin, there is so much more to contend with. Bowing techniques, when you get into those advanced levels, are very, very difficult, and putting all of that together is very difficult. So that's the reason why you need to start off slow, and that's the reason why we don't teach everything all in one go. It's the reason why we wait a year before we teach vibrato, and really a good year before we do all the other bowing techniques like staccato, spiccato, martelé bowing, ricochet bowing, a few other bowings, just to name some. So it takes a long time to accomplish anything, and it's going to sound quite bad for a really long time, but don't beat yourself up. But having said that, the violin is one of, if not the hardest instrument to play, I would probably say it is the most rewarding instrument to play. I think I'm probably a little bit biased in saying that I do prefer to play the violin over the piano, and I don't know whether it's just because, I love the piano, but I think I just prefer the sound of the violin more. If I hear a piano concerto on the radio and then I hear Bruch violin concerto, it's going to be the Bruch violin concerto every single time. There's something about the violin to my ears that is just, it's so relaxing, it's so genuine, it's so sweet, I just can't explain it, but for those of you that kind of feel the same way, you know exactly what I mean. So for me, I guess I tend to gravitate a little bit more towards the violin. So yes, it is very, very difficult, but it is probably the most rewarding. Okay, number 2. Things that people never tell you is the fact that the violin is going to be damn uncomfortable for a really, really long time. Just figuring out how to hold the violin and where to put it is just going to be a nightmare for a long time. So don't be too upset with it. Don't get too bogged down with it. You've just got to find what's right for you. Now, I see a lot of comments, even when I make those videos and I made one not too long ago, several months ago, how to hold the violin, and I'm showing you how to hold the violin, and then I get lots of comments with people saying it's uncomfortable, it's digging into their collarbone here, and it's slipping off, and this, that, and the other. And that's fine. This way works for me, this way may not work for you, but the message I'm trying to get across on that video, or those videos, is actually where to hold the violin more than anything, as in don't hold it too far out, not down, not up, that kind of thing. But you are still going to find it uncomfortable, and what you might find is that having a shoulder rest on the violin is going to help you. So this is a Wolf Forte Primo shoulder rest. This is the one that I do use, or I have used. I haven't used a shoulder rest in decades. I just don't like it, so I generally just don't teach with anything like that. And of course, you guys that are following my videos don't really use anything as well, but I do always make sure to mention that fact that I don't use one. Just because I don't use one doesn't mean to say that you don't have to use one. There's no right or wrong with using one. You're not going to play any better or worse. And I've had people criticizing me, saying that, you know, my playing is rubbish and I should play with a shoulder rest and you can't play without one, and all that kind of nonsense. It's not, it's absolute personal preference, but you are just going to have to find what is comfortable for you. As long as the violin is at the right height, it's at the right kind of level, it's not out to the front, it's not down, it's not up, you know, and I've got videos showing you all of that. But you're going to have to try maybe some shoulder rests, you're going to have to try some cloths and sponges. Find what is suitable for you, but stick with it. Don't give up because it's really uncomfortable, because it absolutely shouldn't. You've just got to find what's right for you. Okay, the third thing that nobody tells you is that you are going to sound horrendous when you first start out. It's going to be bad, and guys, it's going to be really, really bad. But that doesn't stay like that forever. I can absolutely promise you. I was just horrendous when I first started out. We all were. And, you know, there are some people maybe, like, you know, in your family that tell you to stop playing that racket and this, that and the other, you know, and it does start to get you down, because the violin is a very, very difficult instrument. As we've talked about in point 1, it's very uncomfortable. We've talked about in point 2. Point 3, you're going to sound really bad. It doesn't actually really sound like I'm selling the idea of playing the violin here, does it? But, you know, the reward out of the end of this is great. But I think if you go in with full expectations of what it's going to be like, and, you know, Alison has said it's very difficult, not to panic. Alison has said it's going to be really uncomfortable and it's going to sound bad, and, you know, as long as you know that, you know there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. If it was that bad, nobody would be any good at the violin. You wouldn't have all these world famous violinists that are just going off and playing the most amazing music ever. So, you know, stick with it, but you are going to sound really bad, and you are going to sound really bad for a very long time. But as long as you are improving, and as long as you are always self-critiquing and always looking at how you can get better and what it is that doesn't sound right and what it is that you can do to kind of get better at that. And I know that's very difficult for those of you who don't have a teacher. If you do have a teacher, obviously it's a little bit easier, but, you know, a lot of you that are probably watching this video don't have a teacher. Maybe you're watching or learning from my violin course here, maybe you're not, but for those of you who are self-teaching in some way, then, you know, you've just got to just plow through it and just be aware of, right, something's not quite sounding right. Maybe the notes sound a bit funny. Right, that's intonation. Let's get on and sort out intonation. What is it about my fingers that I'm not putting in the right place? So you are going to sound bad, but as long as you're practicing, as long as you're improving, you will get better. Okay, point number 4, invest in a quality violin. Everybody says this. I say this all the time in my videos. It is a very controversial subject, and I get that there are those of you that just do not have the kind of budget, especially depending on where you are in the world and this, that and the other in your own kind of finances, but you do need to get something decent. Don't be going in getting a $40, $50 violin from Amazon. It is just not going to serve you. There are so many things wrong with those violins that you will not be able to get out the starting blocks, let alone do anything else with it. You won't be able to tune them. They will not stay in tune. They will feel very heavy. They will feel very uncomfortable. So not only are you dealing with an instrument that we talked about in point 2 about it being uncomfortable, and you trying to find, you know, shoulder rests and putting cloths and all kinds of stuff under the violin to make it comfortable. If you have bought a very cheap violin, which is kind of, you know, $100, under $100, it's going to be very, very thick, and it's going to be very heavy. It's going to be very cumbersome and very clunky. So you're dealing with that side of things as well. This violin, my antique violin, is very, very light for a violin. So if it's uncomfortable, that's on me, that's my problem, and I can sort that out. I know it isn't going to be something to do with the violin. So if you are playing on a cheap one and it's uncomfortable, maybe address the fact that it's uncomfortable for a reason, and no matter what you do, you're not going to do anything about it. And as I said, they won't tune, they will not hold a tune. How can you learn to play if you're just constantly spending half an hour just tuning the pegs all of the time? And then finally as well, the bridges are made just horrendously. It's like, I don't know what they do, but I think they just cut a bridge that looks marginally like a violin bridge, sticking it on the violin. They're just kind of hoping for the best, or they expect you to become a violin luthier overnight and start sanding down bridges and moving sound posts and all that kind of stuff. I don't even do that. I'm a player, teacher, performer, and I have been for 35, 36 odd years, and I don't do any of that kind of stuff because it's not what I do. A violin luthier has spent that same amount of time learning how to carve bridges perfectly. So they're no good to you unless you are a violin luthier yourself, or you want to spend that extra money getting a violin luthier to sort that all out for you. If you really don't have the money for it, a lot of places will actually allow you to rent a violin, which is going to be much better actually. If you can, I don't know the cost of the violins. It obviously depends where you are in the world and what country you're in, but renting a violin is a really good idea because it's a very cost-effective way to do it, and you can start to learn on something really decent, so that you know if there are any problems with what you're doing, it is not going to be the violin, it is going to be you. And if there is a problem with you, that's fine, because we can sort that out. You can overcome those problems. You can tweak them, you know, you can do whatever you need to get better at it. But if you're playing on a violin that really is hindering you, and you know, and all those reasons that we've talked about, that is completely out of your control, and there's going to be nothing that you're going to be able to do about that. If you can't afford at least a minimum of $200 plus, and even then that's quite a kind of lower end violin, then I would seriously think about renting one. And then of course the final point that I want to talk about is that practice is key to everything. So it's not necessarily something that no one ever told you about. Everybody knows you've got to practice, and everybody knows that practice makes perfect, but consistency is the key as well as practice. So you are better to practice kind of smaller amounts every single day than kind of doing a binge practice session where you'll maybe practice for 2-3 hours on a Saturday, and then you'll do nothing all week, and then you'll practice another 2-3 hours the following Saturday. Your brain hasn't processed, or it has processed, it's already been processing, but then it's gone because the brain hasn't processed and retained the information from one Saturday to the next Saturday. So you've lost that whole kind of 6-7 days in between that practice session where nothing's really going to happen. So you've actually completely wasted those 2 to 3 hours of time on that Saturday practicing. You may as well not actually have bothered practicing at all. So if you can practice, say 20 minutes to 30 minutes every single day, and I'm talking for those of you who are beginners, you know, there's not really much to practice. You can't really be practicing for 4, 5, 6 hours a day when you're just a beginner working on open strings, for example. So, you know, I'm addressing you guys out there, not obviously professional musicians or anything like that. But if you can practice at least, I would say, you know, a minimum, people always like to put a number and an amount and kind of things, but a minimum a day would be 30 minutes. 30 minutes to 1 hour, but 30 minutes would be the kind of the bare minimum that you could actually really get anything done. By the time you've played something several times over and over, you know, you've just kind of taken a break for a couple of minutes, then you come back again. 30 minutes should just about do it, but as I say, it depends what you are working on at the time. But 30 minutes to an hour is a good amount of time to be practicing, and every single day. It's fine if you want to miss out Sundays because you want to go off and do something else. You know, that's not gonna hurt the practice, but practice and consistency are key. So those are the two things that you need to have. So I hope this little video has helped you and not actually put you off. I realised as I was talking through all of the points that I really wasn't selling the violin one single bit, but in all seriousness, yeah, those are a lot of the trials and tribulations of playing the violin that people don't really talk about. You know, if I want to sell something to you, I'm not going to tell you, well, you've got to practice every single day for at least 2 to 3 hours. You're going to sound horrendously bad for months on end. If the violin's going to be uncomfortable, it's the most hardest. You know, if I'm not going to sell something to you by saying that, but it's not really about being negative. It's just about being realistic, and people don't like to talk about those things. They're like huge elephants in the room, and teachers never say that to you, you know, but it's kind of one of the first things I say to my students, that look, you're going to be really bad for many, many months, and that's fine, because we're going to work on it, and in a few months' time you're not going to be really bad, because I'm going to help you, and we're going to take you from being a complete beginner and being really, really bad to something that's much more accomplished, you know, and that's progress. And for the progress, you need that time, you need the patience, you need to put the effort in, and you need that practice as well, the practice and consistency. So I think all of these kind of 5 points put together really do sum up everything that you need, and obviously the will to want to do it. But like anything, something's always going to be hard to start with.
If something's hard to do, then it's not worth doing.
It's just the violin is one of those things that it can be very, very frustrating. There are going to be a lot of tears. I did a lot of crying when I was younger because I just couldn't figure out why I was just so damn rubbish. You know, but it's just the way it is. But I'm glad that I kept on trucking. I'm glad that I kind of pushed through that. And now, you know, and now I've got a fabulous skill, and I can perform at weddings, and people can enjoy my performances. I can play for my own pleasure. You know, I can just pick up the violin and I can just play whatever I want, however I want, whyever I want, you know. And I'm really kind of thankful that I stuck through that. So that's kind of my take home, my takeaway message to you guys. But, you know, as long as you are aware of all those little points, then I think, you know, overall it's going to make you a much, much, much better violinist. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check out my 1 to 30 violin course, which will be linked underneath, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.